Okay, I think we need to refocus a little bit here with these campy Halloween films, because the last two offerings, they treated it more like an afterthought. Tickle Me brought the horror elements in towards the end when they couldn't figure out what else to do, and The Ghost of Dragstrip Hollow, they treated the spooky elements like this inconvenient side tour they had to take if it meant they got to make their hot rodding slumber party movie. No, we need to look at a movie that loves that it is a teenager, campy, singing and dancing in a haunted house film. And that is what brings us to our film today. The 1966 drive-in movie classic, The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini, which I think, if nothing else, deserves a special award for creating the most ludicrous sentence ever penned by man. This movie is not only proud of its horror movie spoof roots, it absolutely revels in it. So much so that they went out and got two of the great horror movie actors to appear alongside a bunch of bikini-clad teenagers to give this movie some kind of legitimacy. I'm speaking, of course, of Basil Rathbone, probably best known for a very successful series of Sherlock Holmes films back during the 30s and 40s, where he played, of course, the title character of Sherlock Holmes, and the great Boris Karloff, of course, known as the original Mummy, and more importantly, the original Frankenstein's creature. I have to say, before we go too much further into this, you have to give both Rathbone and Boris Karloff just all the credit in the world, because they are proving how British they really are with this film. Because, I mean, it's Ghost in the Invisible Bikini, folks, and yet both of these actors are just clearly giving it their all. Boris Karloff, who I believe this is one of his last films. I think this is one of the last films he made before he passed away. And you can tell he's just kind of in there to bookend the plot. But he's clearly having a charming time. He's clearly enjoying the tongue-in-cheek humor. He does most of his scenes with our title character, whom I'll speak of here shortly. And it just seems like he's having a very pleasant time. He's like a delightful uncle. Basil Rathbone, you have to give all the credit in the world to, because he is trying to be the dramatic center of this lunacy, and still trying to present the film with some kind of grounding. He's trying to play a villain who is actually playing this, so dead serious. I've mentioned it many times before that one of the things I love about British actors is that their way they're trained versus the way American actors are trained is British actors are trained that you play every part to your utmost. You play every single part like you're playing King Lear. And Basil Rathbone totally does that here. So all the respect in the world to both these guys for not phoning this in and really having a good time with it. Okay, so let's talk about the story here. As seems to be the tradition with these films, the story is a little convoluted, which you wouldn't figure would be the case with a film called Ghost in the Invisible Bikini, but there you go. So what is the plot of this cinematic masterpiece? Well, Boris Karloff's character is recently dead. In fact, he is credited in the film as the corpse, even though his character has a name. But, however, I digress. So, Boris Karloff has passed away. But before he can go up to heaven, he has to perform at least one good deed on Earth. The good deed he comes up with is making sure that his inheritance goes to its rightful owners, this being Tommy Kirk, Deborah Walley, and Patsy Riley, who seems very out of place in this. It's a little unclear as to why these three people are his heirs. I think they mentioned somewhere in there that he chiseled money out of all their families, and so he feels he owes them, so he wants to make sure that they get the money and try to protect them from his evil lawyer, played by Basil Rathbone, who has procured his own little squad of incompetent henchmen to murder the three rightful heirs when they come to this haunted house for the will reading. The comical horror sidekicks, including a lovely woman with a man in a gorilla suit, a bumbling sidekick, and the incredibly unfunny Benny Rubin as Chicken Feather, one of the most offensive Native American stereotypes I have ever seen put to film. I am not going to recount any aspects of this performance, only to say that it makes the What Makes the Red Man Red song in the Disney Peter Pan look like a symposium on Native American culture. You know, so yeah, we're not going to touch on that. Just know that this is one of those things that you realize, ooh, the 60s weren't as long ago as we would like to think. Ouch. So into this mess. So, Tommy Kirk, Deborah Walley, and Patsy Kelly, arrive at the house for the will reading, and out of nowhere, Patsy Riley's idiot nephew, Bobby, played by Aaron Kincaid, shows up with an entire busload of bikini-clad teenagers because they are going to throw a party at this house, which is a bit cheeky when you consider she hasn't actually inherited the house yet, and they're just going to invade and have a seemingly 24-hour-a-day dance party. I'm serious. This dance party just keeps going. Like, they're dancing, they cut away, have an entire scene or three inside the house, come back, and the kids are still dancing. We're going to come back to the dancing in a minute. We got to talk about this dancing. But anyway. So now here's the funny thing to me about this. So why talk about this film outside the fact that it's so insane, it's almost brilliant. As I was watching this, something kind of dawned on me. I could find no research to back this up, but I swear I heard this somewhere. And even if it's not true, if it suddenly came out that it was, I would not be surprised. I truly believe, deep down in my heart of hearts, that this film had to have been some kind of influence on the creation of Scooby-Doo. I honestly believe that. It had to have been. There are just so many similarities between this and what would eventually become one of the greatest cartoons of all time. This movie premiering in 1966, 3 years before Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Would premiere in 1969. So we have just all of the tropes. We have a haunted house, a celebrity villain, several celebrity guest appearances. I'm surprised the Harlem Globetrotters didn't show up for this. You have guys in rubber suits chasing around teenagers who are busy dancing. And some of the personalities of some of our teen heroes are the frickin' Scooby-Doo gang. So Tommy Kirk, he looks like Shaggy, but he's our Freddy. He's the Freddy of the group, all right? Aaron Kincaid as Bobby. Now, he looks like Freddy, tall and blonde and muscular, but he's our Shaggy, the idiot coward. Deborah Walley is Daphne, like to a T. Like, everything is there with the exception of the purple dress with green scarf, and I'm pretty sure she wears purple in this film at some point. I'm pretty sure. I mean, she is Daphne, all the way down to her being kidnapped by some guy in a bad gorilla costume and taken into a secret passage in a haunted house. I want to talk about Deborah Walley here for a second. First of all, I have to say, Deborah Walley is one of those, I'm going to say classic actors. I don't like saying old actors. But she is one of those old actors I just kind of love. She's just very charming. She's in one of my all-time favorite movies, Summer Magic, the pivotal film of summer, if you ask me. She played Gidget originally, I believe. She's been in at least one Elvis movie. She was a comic foil for Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello in a couple of their beach movies. By the way, if you have not seen a Frankie and Annette beach movie, you need to do that first off, because they're just fun. They're just ridiculous fun. But this film is clearly influenced by the Frankie and Annette beach movies. So anyway, so she was in one of those. A very lovely young lady at the time, and a very good singer. She had a nice singing voice. I'm saying all this because I just felt so sorry for this young woman. Again, saying young woman, this movie was made in the 60s, but still. There's a part in this film where I'm just looking at it, and I cringe for her. And it's not the fact that she has to pretend to be sexually attracted to Tommy Kirk. So they have the scene, the climactic fight scene, of course. Again, very Scooby-Doo-esque, with all the heroes and villains running all over the place. The villains have Deborah Walley tied up to a working sawmill. So apparently, Boris Karloff not only had a house of horrors in the basement of his spooky mansion, but also a working sawmill for reasons. They have her tied to this sawmill, and the joke of the fight is that she keeps being moved towards the blade and away from the blade, towards the blade and away from the blade. That's the kind of running joke of the fight scene. And while watching one of these cuts, you realize that there's an actual saw in that saw blade, because it is actually cutting in to the wood that she is tied to, and it is kicking sawdust up at her. So two things to take away from this. So this poor girl was actually tied down to a thing that was spinning, that a saw blade that was actually spinning and cutting into lumber she was tied to. First off. Second of all, this sawdust is flying up and hitting her in the face, and she's tied down and she's twisting her head, trying to get it away from, and and you can tell it's going in her nose and in her hair and her eyes. It's like, dude, cut! Somebody say cut! Get the poor girl untied! Oh my God! I felt so sorry for her. I don't know what she got paid for this movie, but it wasn't nearly enough. Again, you pile on top of that having to pretend to be attracted to Tommy Kirk, and it was a hectic day at the office for her. Now, as I said, she's our Daphne. Now, we don't have a Velma technically, but we can see the makeup. A couple of characters put together in this film, and you can see where the inspiration for Velma would have come from. So, amongst the partying teens, we have Nancy Sinatra doing a guest bit, playing Bobby's girlfriend. However, she is immediately upstaged by Quinn O'Hara playing Sinestra. Sinestra is Basil Rathbone's daughter in the film, whom he charges with the task of murdering knuckle-headed Bobby. The joke being that Sinestro wears glasses, and this is back in the 60s when wearing glasses immediately made you unattractive, despite the fact that you're wearing a bikini through the entire film and you look dynamite. So the joke with a lot of her scenes is that she is trying to seduce Bobby so she can bump him off, but she keeps taking her glasses off so she can become sexier. Very She's All That kind of logic. And because she's so nearsighted, she keeps accidentally, pouring the poison that she was going to give him into a suit of armor, or accidentally pushing a stone bust off of the cliff instead of him. So if you combine these two characters, there's our Velma. Incidentally, another thing about these beach movies, there's one of those tropes that always kind of never made a lot of sense to me. There's always some sultry seductress who comes into the lives of our main heroes and makes our hormone-crazed males forget the girlfriends they brought with them to the beach and or the haunted house. What gets me about this is that Quinn O'Hara and Nancy Sinatra are both attractive young women. Why would you go over there when Nancy Sinatra is right next to you? I guess the joke is that she's supposed to be, sexy. She's more promiscuous, a little sultry. But anyway, so that all happens. We got to talk about the dancing. As I mentioned, it's a non-stop dance party with these kids. They are just out behind they're out in the gorgeous pool area of this haunted house, just dancing the night away and the day. If you've never seen a beach movie, if you've never seen a film from the 60s like this, I cannot describe the dancing to you. I lack the eloquence and the vocabulary, it would seem. So I have to do something I don't normally do, because I can't describe this, and I can't demonstrate it because I'm driving, and I'm also 42 years old. I'm not as limber as I used to be. So I have to, we've got to look at this. You've got to see this. If you've never seen this, you have to. So I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and we're going to revert to using some visual aids. So please, you have to see this. We're going to take a look at it. It's a little bootlegged little scene from this film where the kids are dancing with a stick it, flip it. So just look at this. Look at it. I mean, you saw that, right? You saw that. Look at it again. Look at it again. I don't know. What do you say to, look at this guy. Look at this guy. No, I'm serious. You look at him. You take a good, hard, steamy look at him. Folks, I think I've mentioned this several times during the course of my reviews, but I grew up in Alaska, and when winter would come and the snow would fall, and we would get one of our heavier snowfalls, it would blanket the world in marshmallow. And looking out at the windows at the proverbial winter wonderland, it looked like a piece of blank canvas, with only a few small dots to highlight the human-made structures that nature had washed clean with its pure, blinkingly beautiful cream covering. I'm telling you this now because I want to give you proper context when I say to you that I think that is probably the whitest thing I have ever seen in my life. You're probably noticing at this point in time that I have not mentioned the title character, the ghost in the invisible bikini. That is because the ghost in the invisible bikini is the least important thing of the ghost in the invisible bikini. The titular character, which that word sounds very dirty in this context, is a spirit who is acting as Boris Karloff's kind of agent on Earth to help make sure that his good deed gets done. So really, he isn't doing the good deed. She is doing it for him. She is absent for so much of the film that you're pardoned for forgetting she is actually there. And the invisible bikini of the title is, obviously they had her stand in front of a green screen with a green bathing suit on and projected the film behind her so that the bikini seemed invisible, hence the title of the film. As I said, she is the least important character in the entire film. But I need to take a moment before we wrap up. We have to talk about the most important character of this film. Just one of, and indeed, I believe one of the most important characters in film history. Truly, his influence has been misunderstood and misrepresented for so long, and now that we live in the age that we do, I think it is about time that we recognize this man for the immense contributions he made to film. About halfway through this movie, out of nowhere, apropos of nothing, we are introduced to yet another group of characters. So we've already got the singing and dancing teens. We've got Deborah, Walley, and Tommy Kirk, who are doing their own thing. You've got Basil Rathbone and his group of idiots. You have Boris Karloff watching the whole film from a magic crystal ball. But into this, we add yet another element. Halfway through the film, the motorcycle gang, the Rats, spelled with a Z, and their leader, the brilliant Harvey Lembeck as Eric Von Zipper, make their triumphant appearance. The Rats are a motorcycle gang. The best way to describe them is if Bulk and Skull and Lenny and Squiggy decided to start a motorcycle gang. And of course, being led by the most Bulk and Skull since Bulk and Skull themselves, Eric Von Zipper. He is a bumbling Lou Costello ripoff who just trounces his way through the film, berating his somehow stupider than him henchmen, and just basically being slapstick comic relief. And it is fucking brilliant. It is brilliant in its badness. I'm not going to say that Eric Von Zipper, I should say, is any substitute for Lou Costello, but the spirit is there. The intention is good. But Eric Von Zipper, his presence is more important than just adding one more bit of comic genius to this already packed film. You see, Eric Von Zipper did not originate in this film. No, no, no. In fact, Eric Von Zipper and his motorcycle gang, the Rats, were originally seen in Beach Blanket Bingo and I believe another Frankie and Annette beach movie some years before. Meaning that his presence in this film makes this film chronologically connected to the Frankie and Annette beach movies. Yes, you thought that Marvel and Kevin Smith were the first to do this, but no, it turns out that Eric Von Zipper was his generation's Jay and Silent Bob, linking the complex plots of multiple films together and being the center point of it all in what I am now officially dubbing the Zipperverse. And you'll be surprised how deep the Zipperverse actually goes. Okay, so there you have it. So let's wrap this up and do our last little bit of film rating here. So the best song of this little drive-in delight. That's kind of a hard one, I have to say. The songs are not brilliant, but they are enjoyable. There's some fun to be had with them. Nancy Sinatra does a song, another song called Geronimo. Not the same version that was in Ghost of Dragstrip Hollow, but another song named Geronimo. I don't know what the deal was with Geronimo back in these days, why it was the subject of so many teen bop songs, but there you go. Sinestra has a cute song where she's trying to seduce a suit of armor she thinks is Bobby, but it's structurally all over the place. No, I have to go with Stand Up and Fight by, I am going to completely mispronounce her name, Priscilla Poe, I believe is her name. I believe an Italian pop star who is dropped into this, who sings a song to Nancy Sinatra about how she has to stand up and fight for her man. It is a very catchy little number, perhaps a little underscored by the fact that this is during the slumber party portion of these films. Apparently they all have to have a slumber party, where she is chotching around the bedroom with the girls in her bikini. So, but the song is actually quite nice and a little, it's got that nice kind of girl power thing to it. At least I think so, but that's a 42-year-old white man saying that. So, other people probably very much disagree. The Spice Girls, it is not, but it does have the DNA. The reused costume of the evening. So while Basil Rathbone's flunkies are attempting to scare and or murder our heroes, one of them dons an iconic B-movie monster suit. Fans of Mystery Science Theater will recognize this one as well, as they don one of the suits from the classically terrible movie Attack of the Eye Creatures. Yes, the eye creature costume actually comes in here. What's sad is that this film has far better film quality and more money behind it than Attack of the Eye Creatures ever did, meaning that you can actually see the costume in better resolution and see that it actually did have tiny little eyes painted on it, something you could never actually see in the original film. So there you have it. Final thoughts here. This film, much like the Frankie and Annette Beach movies, is ridiculous. It is ludicrous. In times, it is downright offensive, and yet it is a complete blast. It does not hide from its goofiness. It doesn't hide from its bizarreness. It steers right into the skid, pulls up a chair, sits down, and orders a chocolate malt. And you got to admire the balls of it. So I kind of love this ridiculous chapter of the Zipperverse. So if you have the time and you can find it, give it a try. Just don't say I didn't warn you. So that's it for now. We've got one more Halloween camp review coming up. So be sure to come back and check us out when we party with some hillbillies trapped in a haunted house. Until then, have a happy Halloween. Take care of the people in your life and love the people in your life. And above all, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.